Hello, I'm Lauren Eisenlohr, Marketing Director for Serendipity Media, the publisher of West Michigan Woman. This is Beyond the Fold. It's an opportunity for us to go a little deeper and to tell the story behind the story. Today, I'm joined by Nadia Brigham, which is really exciting because this is the second time we've convinced Nadia to answer all of our questions. Nadia graced the West Michigan Woman cover of our February and March issue. She's a cover star for a number of reasons, but most notably at this time is the story of how she came to found Brigham Consulting and GR Noir Wine and Jazz, which if you're unfamiliar with GR Noir, it's a bar that offers live music, global wines, small plates, and I think the best part about it is that it's a very welcoming place to learn more about wine and jazz and the people and places that gave birth to them. It's a very, very cool story. So good morning, Nadia, and thank you again.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. So within the article in West Michigan Woman, you spoke a lot about how your two businesses came to be. And you said that it was really midlife clarity that led you in this direction. Now, that being said, you quit your job and embarked on something totally new. So a lot of people would call that a midlife crisis. So how is what you experienced different, and what made it a clarifying journey?
Yeah. So, growing up, you always heard about the guy who quit his job, got a small car, left his wife and family, and, was in this sort of midlife crisis. And I think for me, the reason why I term it as a clarity is because I was not in crisis. I wasn't, I was very clear spiritually of what I needed to be doing. Excuse me, and that I needed to be making a change, even though I didn't know fully what that change was going to be. So for me, I didn't experience, and I think the kicker is the folks who are around you when you're typically having a midlife crisis are like, something's wrong with you, you're crazy. And that is not what was happening for me. I was surrounded by folks who especially my husband, who is like very steady and sort of has his routines and is more risk averse than I am, right? And when I was sharing with him what was on my heart, he was like, "Absolutely, go for it." When his typical response would have been sort of like, "Okay, let's think about this. Let's turn it upside down. Right?" It would have been to slow me down, and it wasn't that at all. So I think one of the big reasons why I felt like it was clarity is because the folks around, one, I felt very clear. I didn't feel like I was out of control or losing something. I felt like I was moving into um, gaining another part of myself that wasn't previously there. And then the folks around me were like, absolutely. And that's what felt like clarity for me.
Yeah, that's incredible. I just muted myself because, like we talked about earlier, my dog is going to go off in the background, but we'll work around it. So your husband, obviously a very supporting man, and actually he is a finalist in the West Michigan Woman Brilliance Awards for Best Supporting Man, which is
Yeah.
awesome. So, you talked about how he supported you through this and really encouraged you. I want to know more about your love story because it started in the fourth grade, right?
Yes. So my husband, he's so funny. This is his version of the story. So I distinctly remember him. I moved from Illinois, where I was born, northwest suburbs of Chicago, and moved in fourth grade, February 28th, 1987. First day in my new school. Met my husband that day. I distinctly remember what he had on. He distinctly remembers what I had on. I was from a different place. And he said, when he met me, and the teacher introduced me, Miss Gorman introduced me to the class, he said, "I'm gonna marry her one day." um, and he was always very sweet, always very different. Like his personality stood out. One, he was hilarious, but had a quiet, gentle spirit. I went to school in that district 1 year. So then we separated, lost contact for like 3 years. Seventh grade, he came to the school district that I was in, and we uh, became friends, and just always, kicked it. Like he was my friend first, and then when we were in high school, we dated. I brought him home to meet my family at my grandmother's house. My uncle met him coming into the house, and like Black families do, they want to know who your people, like where
Mhm.
you come from, who are your people. And I discovered that day that a man that I knew my whole life as my uncle, his name, we called him affectionately Wolf, Uncle Wolf. I discovered that day that he wasn't actually my uncle. He was actually my husband's uncle, his real biological uncle. And what we discovered when I brought him home is how deep our family roots were. My grandmother helped babysit his father, knew his aunts and uncles. Like there was a long history between his father's family and my family. And so we knew that this must be the thing, and we've been together ever since. He's my guy. He before it was fashionable for men to be anti-patriarchal. He was that. He has always supported me. Quit college so that I could finish college. He's just that guy. Just an amazing man, amazing husband, amazing father, and to be emulated.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, it was meant to be.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, I met my husband in high school, and then we lost touch for 10 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
then we came back together. So it's so crazy how the universe, continues to put these people in your life and make these
Absolutely.
things happen. Um, so you guys have children, yes?
We do. We do. We have three children, 29-year-old son, our only son, 22-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old daughter. So yeah,
So what is something that you find yourself telling your kids over and over?
be considerate. If you ask either one of them, it's the last time all three of us were together, that was the conversation we were having. Is just to be mindful and considerate of others. You can get swept away and caught up in your own self, especially in this culture where people are on, social media presenting a particular,
Mhm.
face of who they are. And you can lose track of how others are doing. You can lose track of how you can share humanity with folks. So it makes me think about like things like, I can wear a mask for somebody else, even if I think it's stupid or inconvenient for me. I can do that if it means, saving their lives or hindering this virus from impacting them. For me, it's about consideration, and that's the biggest thing that we've pushed with our kids: be considerate, know yourself, and serve others. Figure out how you can serve your community in ways that leave it better than what you found it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are obviously a busy mom. You're working on your PhD at this point. You have two businesses, all incredible, and something that I certainly aspire to. Um, I find myself feeling a lot of mom guilt. And I think that other moms do as well. And I get frustrated because they never ask my husband, how do you do it all? That's never a question that he gets. But so I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on mom guilt, and do you feel it?
I think we're socialized to feel mom guilt. And that has to do with traditional gender roles, right? That are prescribed to us at a very early age, from, the toys that our children play with, what, the prescription of what a mom is supposed to be and how they're supposed to be in relationship with their partner, all of those things.
Right.
And this is another place where my husband has really been like a great friend to me, because earlier on in our marriage, actually before we got married, we were doing marriage counseling. um, the pastor who we grew up with was asking us those questions. And he's an old school, like he comes from an old school sort of frame, and he was asking us questions about like, how are you guys going to be together? What happens if your wife makes more money? What how do you want to what happens if she wants to go to school? Like all of these things to get him thinking about it. But there's something special about how his parents raised him, because from the beginning, he's always been like, I want you to do the thing that makes you happy. And it's anecdotal, but I would always say, you know what, this is how I feel. Should I feel like that? And I remember earlier on in our marriage, he would always say, you feel what you feel. And that's okay. Right. Um,
Yeah.
so yes, you feel the mom guilt. But I try to push it away, because I know that that's from the outside in. And I try to move from the inside out, in terms of what it is I'm called to do. What's my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be? And it's a balance. Like I'm always like fighting to get back time so that I can spend with my daughter, but I'm also pulling her into where I am. So she's doing this, and she's the only one that's home right now. So I focus most of my attention on her. But she's doing this unit right now. She's a fourth grader doing this unit on economics. So this is just an example. So yesterday, I've been pulling her into the accounting on the GR Noir side and the bookkeeping. So yesterday, she's doing a unit on supply and demand. And, they do what teachers do, what they do. They teach them theoretically, they try to make it real for them, but you can still tell how they talk about it that it's still theoretical. Right. So I say to her, okay, let's look at GR Noir's back end so you can see what are people demanding based on what sells. And I'm showing her our food menu and how the sales are going, and having her dissect those charts and that data so that she can have something real and tangible to make that lesson come alive. Now, that helps me not feel guilty, because I need to look at those numbers anyway. Right?
Yeah.
And now I got to help her. And so like, I think part of the way to deal with mom guilt is to fight for the balance, and to go, to create spaces where you can merge the two worlds, merge what she's learning and what's important to her, and, the things that you have going on as well.
That's fantastic. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I'm pursuing my graduate degree at this point. And so thank you. Thank you.
What area?
Communication, digital media. So this is very fitting. But I feel bad at times because I come home from work and I have to get grad school work done, and so my kids are there. My kids are 4 and 1 at this point. So I just try to explain to them, you never stop learning, and mom has homework too, and those types of things. So I really appreciate that perspective. And speaking of, societal norms and the things that are prescribed to us, you talked about in your article how you didn't even have a glass of wine until you were an adult, and, because it wasn't a part of how you grew up. It wasn't a part of, the community that surrounded you. And I realized that was a bias that I had, because that's something that I would never even think about, so I'm glad that you brought it to light, but I wanted to ask you more about that, why you didn't have a glass of wine, and then the barriers that GR Noir is trying to break.
Absolutely. So there were a couple of reasons why we hadn't had a glass of wine. One is that wine, in the cultural context from where I come from, it wasn't a part of the lexicon. It wasn't a part of what was sold in our neighborhoods. We weren't a part of that market segment that folks even thought that we were interested as a people in wine. And you see those trends now, like everybody has a wine.
Right.
Like, Charles Woodson, former Michigan athlete, Steph Curry, Dwayne Wade, like all of these, Black folks, men and women, have these wines, and that just wasn't a thing, right? It was touted as sophisticated, and it is classy, and it is. But the narrative around my community is that we aren't classy, we aren't sophisticated, we don't come. It was touted for certain social economic class, and so we didn't have access to it culturally. So even in the mind, right, as
Mhm.
well as like what was made available in terms of what was sold to who and where. So that's one reason. The other reason is that and this is part of my own story for our family. Alcohol was not wine, but it was lumped into like substances, and you stay away from alcohol. There's
Mhm.
alcohol abuse that is impacting your community, and so you're like, ooh, I don't know any, I don't want to be addicted, and addiction is a thing in our community, and so I didn't want to be a part of that, and so I myself, had a fear of wine
Yeah.
from that standpoint. And so I didn't want to expose because alcoholism, substance abuse was such a huge thing in our community. I didn't want to expose my children to that or to those dynamics. And what I had to
Mhm.
educate myself around is wine is different. Yeah, people could be addicted to alcohol, and wine is a part of that, but it doesn't bring up the same kind of energy in my mind that spirits do, right?
Sure.
Uh,
Mhm.
and so people tend to commune as I educated myself, people tend to commune around wine. It's been around since before in the biblical days, right? It was Jesus'
Mhm.
first miracle, right? Like it's been
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Folks come in contact with it. Those who do traditional communion come in contact with it monthly to remember Christ, right? So, like, I had to re-educate myself around it, knock down some of the stereotypes that I had, and then just say to myself, how do I then educate my children so that they're not fearful of wine in particular, and the essence of wine and its power to be communal. And so that's what we did. And so, but it took me to raise those two children, um, and to have the third one before I was able to kind of get over that hump mentally for myself and say, this is ridiculous. Now, how do I take that to my community and say, you are classy? You are sophisticated. There is space for you in this industry, not
Mhm.
only as a business owner, but also like in the particular industry that we're in, and to make it accessible in a way that doesn't intimidate people from trying different things, from wine as a concept, but like the different kinds of wines where people are intimidated about the language, and you're supposed to know where it's from, and you're supposed to swirl it and smell it, and swirl it around in your mouth, and it's like it's off-put. It can be off-putting. And part of
Yeah.
the brand and the brand promise of GR Noir is that we create space for people to be able to explore without that feeling, right? Without the feeling of intimidation or feeling like they're ignorant. So they just go to the one brand that they know, right? But that
Right.
they can explore without judgment. And we can make that accessible and fun, and even part down to the aesthetics of GR Noir. We wanted it to be warm. When you walk in GR Noir, we want you to feel hugged. We want you to feel, and there's multiple reasons, not just for the wine, but as people of color, there are not spaces. And we're dealing with this in our, social context now. I'm a sociologist by training, and we're dealing with this where like Black people don't feel safe. White people feel like they don't know how to relate. Latino, indigenous, Asian folks, they feel like we're targets in society. And GR Noir is the kind of place that when you step in, no matter what your background, social economic status, political affiliation, we want you to feel like you can come in and feel hugged, and just be,
Yes.
right? And so that's what we're trying to create. And I feel like last thing, I know that was a long answer to your question,
No,
but last
that's
thing
fantastic.
is like what we've noticed from February to last Friday, since we've been open, is that it's so beautiful. It's so diverse. in terms of gender, race, age, social economic affiliation, and even uh, political affiliation. And I know that because of the masks that people, the messages that they wear on their masks.
Oh,
And
sure.
that is the beauty, because we've lost that in our society in this moment, that we can hold that level of diversity and the power of what it brings. And all of them share two things: one, humanity, and two, they're having a good time when they come to GR Noir. And that's what we're trying to create.
Do you feel like that kind of space that's so welcoming and so diverse is unique to West Michigan?
Absolutely. Um, and I'm speaking from the stories and the comments that our patrons have shared with us,
Mhm.
um, from uh, from multiple comments, like dozens of comments, like walking into your doors, uh, we feel like we're in another place. We feel like we're in Chicago, or we feel like, we're in a big city. Like, it doesn't feel like West Michigan.
Yeah.
Now, that is a compliment on one hand, and it's also a bit of critique on our community and the things that we can improve upon. So we get those comments, but we also get comments about, particularly from people of color. So I'm remembering serving someone at our communal table, serving a family who were Latino. Some spoke English, some didn't. And I remember engaging with the parents who understood English, spoke a little bit of English, and engaging with them, and how they communicated to me how appreciative they felt coming. We still have a community where folks don't feel like they have welcoming spaces to be. And while GR Noir serves all communities, one of the things that we pay attention to is how people of color come in and feel.
Mhm.
And the things that they say to us. And we've also gotten that from our white brothers and sisters who come in and say the same thing. Thank you. The other thing that they say is, this feels, all folks say, this feels like a vibe. And for those who don't understand that lingo, just a feeling, an energy that is welcoming, that is warm, that is loving, that is affirming. And that's what we're trying to create. And I would say that there are a lot of people who don't pay attention to how they make their patrons feel. They're worried about their bottom line, and look, we opened during COVID. We're worried about our bottom line, but most of all, we're worried about the experience that people have, and we're hoping that our attention and attentiveness and intentionality around that will create the kind of demand for GR Noir that we need to have to be sustainable.
I think you're going to be successful because of that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's what's going to drive it. And I am so grateful that you've opened a place like that. After college, I moved to Philadelphia and lived there for a while, and much more diverse climate than here
Yeah,
in West Michigan. And so, I find myself yearning for places like that,
yeah, yeah,
for that vibe. I can't even describe in words really what that means, but it's a feeling, you know.
absolutely.
Um, so I love that. And you guys at GR Noir have a communal table, right,
Mhm.
where anybody can come and sit. How is that being received? Because I feel like a lot of people might find that intimidating.
So right now, the vision for how we set that table up was pre-COVID. So it's in essence, it's a promise right now, right? It hasn't been acted upon in the way in which we envisioned it, which is anybody coming in, similar to like a bar, but we wanted it to be smaller and intimate, where anybody coming
Oh
in
yeah.
can sit down and get to know people that they may not have come in with. Right now, obviously, because of COVID, obviously we're closed right now. We're doing curbside, I should say. But when we were doing in-room dining, it's been used for families who come together. And so we are hoping at some point that vision will come to fruition, where people can just come in, get to know somebody, want to vibe with somebody around wine or around jazz, can come and sit at that table together and get to know people that they may not have come with, or don't know, or are interested in knowing. So that's what we're hoping, that communal table
Mhm.
will be at some point.
And you're right, it is just like a bar. I mean, you would sit down at the bar and maybe chat with the person next to you. I think the difference is now you can make eye contact with them at the
That's right.
table. So maybe absolutely a much more intimate feel. So I'll end this interview with a very cliche but interesting question. I'm always curious to know. So if you could sit down and have wine and listen to jazz with any historical figure, living or dead, who would it be?
So it's interesting. Historic, like this is more on my profession side on in terms of sociology. You'd be expected to say,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest, the greatest folks. Who I'd
Right.
actually, if I had to choose a historical figure, it would probably be W.E.B. Du Bois. He was a sociologist. He was one of the first Black sociologists that pushed who spanned many different sociological areas, but really spoke to the Black community having institutions and having organizations that would affirm and continue to create community. So I'd want to talk to him. But who I'd really want to talk to, so those who have come to GR Noir see that there's this picture behind the bar of 5 amazing people who are very meaningful to us. It's my grandmother, my father-in-law, my uncle, my maternal uncle, my only maternal uncle, my stepfather, and a dear friend that we call our brother. All of them saw us embark upon this GR Noir journey and encouraged us. They were our cheerleaders, but have since passed away. And I would want to talk with them to see if to get feedback, to hear their reactions to what we've created, to see the pride in their eyes, because they were always so proud of us.
Yes.
And I miss all of them dearly. And they just poured into our lives, and that's why we have them at GR Noir, because we always want to honor the impact and the imprint that they've had over the course of our lives, equally for both my husband and I.
Incredible. You're amazing, Nadia. Thank you
Thank
again so much for speaking further on all of these things. It's your story is so intriguing. It's inspiring. It really is. And so
you.
for everybody listening and watching, thank you for watching. And if you haven't been to GR Noir, you guys are offering curbside service at this point. Is that right?
We absolutely are. We absolutely are. And you can order online. You can order wine online, pay for it online, or you can call it in. And then you can call in food orders as well. We're continuing to offer that Thursday through Saturday of this week, or today and tomorrow of this week, next week, Thursday and Friday. And our hope is to resume operations, indoor dining next Saturday with live jazz. But we ask the community to just be patient with us as we're trying to be good community stewards and partners and keep our staff and our community safe as we respond to the demands of what COVID requires.
People can still join the wine club, though. Yeah.
Absolutely. They absolutely
I
can
love
join the
your
wine
wine
club.
club.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Like my husband really, he and Tom Grimm, who's our wine lead, they really pour love over that wine club. They are trying to pick the best selections for our folks. When we open up, we have 4 different tiers that are on our website, but there's an additional tier for in-room dining that is called our Flight Club. It's called the Discover Club, and it gives people an opportunity at a very economical price. I think it's $17 a month to come in and try different flights. And this is for folks who are trying to discover what is their palate, what do they like. I don't want to try a glass of that, but I might want to try 2 ounces. And so we're offering that as well when we're able to resume operations indoor.
Fantastic. Well, I will end with a quote actually from you, because I just think it's so great. It makes me feel a lot better about trying different wines. You said, quote, "You might like it, you might not, but you don't have to look to someone else to validate what you're tasting. It's the tongue you were born with."
That's right. Thank you. That's right.
Yeah. So thank you again, Nadia, and thank you everybody for watching Beyond the Fold. This is West Michigan Woman's story behind the story. Until next time, cheers.